I don't want to
effects
hold
that cause.
monster. I want to throw them through the ring of blades and make them choose whether or not they're going to come back out or
And
what.
I want every weekend for it to be Christmas, Bob, but we can't always get what we want, okay?
Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we're talking about the spell Blade Barrier.
They're swords. They're like, they're my fingers. They're swords, I guess. Who knows? This is a weird little
Sure.
6th level cleric exclusive.
Yes.
Cast on an
Uh,
action, 10-minute duration, 90-foot range. You create a vertical wall of whirling razor sharp blades made of magical energy. The wall appears in range and lasts for the duration. You make a straight wall up to 100 feet long, 20 feet high, and 5 feet thick, or a ringed wall up to 60 feet in diameter, 20 feet high, and 5 feet thick. The wall provides 3/4 cover to creatures behind it, and its space is difficult terrain. That goes both ways. So if you are on one side of it, enemies on the other will have 3/4 cover from you. When a creature enters the wall area for the first time on a turn or starts its turn there, the creature must make a dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes 6d10 slashing damage. On a failed save, it takes half as much. Nice and simple.
yeah. Now, when you said it was weird, do you mean inherently weird or weird that it's cleric exclusive?
Inherent, like, I don't know. I don't picture a giant wall of spinning blades to be necessarily the domain of the holy. That's all.
No, that's what
This,
I'm wondering. Why is this a cleric exclusive spell? Like clerical lore, and I don't know about this edition, but in editions past, they can't even use edged weapons.
oh, that's why they always use maces. Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. And like Cloud of Daggers is a wizard spell, right? And this feels like it's Cloud of Daggers' big brother. It's
yeah.
kind of the gist I get. I would guess that it has to do with some kind of like angelic justice, like the swords of the archangels that are coming, creating a barrier of holy weapons. There might be some real world historical religious connotation and stories involving giant barriers of swords. I know I've seen the iconography, but I couldn't possibly tell you
Yeah.
the implications of them. But hey, at the end of the day, we get the spell and it's a cleric exclusive, and I think that's kind of neat. It's kind of novel. This is sort of the best damage spell clerics get. It does require a lot of work, but if you put that work in, this thing does do like truckloads of damage. This thing hits like
I
a
mean,
bus.
the work being forced movement.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
There's no world endings ever sticking in this for more than a turn unless you can force them to do so.
yeah.
So, like, you do have to make sure you are spending multiple resources, keeping them, you're pushing them back into it is ideally the play pattern, right? If you can push them in and out of it, they take multiple instances of the damage over multiple turns, right? So, like, if you are an Eldritch Blaster and you have someone that's touching a blade barrier, you can fire a blast, knock them into a blade barrier. They'll take the damage when they enter it. You fire another blast at them, knock them out of the blade barrier. Then, if someone can pull them back into the blade barrier, they'll double dig on another 60-10 damage. And then at the start of their turn, they'll take another 60-10 damage. And that wraps up 18d10 damage in a single round, which is
Yeah.
a huge amount of damage for a single round for a single spell, right? Like 18-10 damage equates to 99 damage on average. Now, that example requires a lot to go right. It requires a cleric that set up a blade barrier, it requires a warlock that goes after them, and it requires someone else to pull them back in after that happens. It also requires, the warlock hits with both their repelling blasts. Like, a lot goes into making that come to fruition. But the payoff is there. Like, 99
Yeah.
damage to something is absolutely a good payoff for this.
I mean, that could just be the beginning. If everybody's working together and you've all got, you know, what telekinetic, and then you've got a crusher, and you've got all these other things that are moving them, throwing them. You got scatter, good times.
I'm thinking, like, you want to play ping pong with this, right? Like, you put down
Yeah.
a wall in the middle of them after the barbarian got to the other side, and the barbarian's just smashing them back into it as the rest of the party is shoving them in from the other side, right? You got people
Hmm.
firing off thunder waves. You got a bunch of people on the other side that are just like playing golf, just like waiting for them to come back in, and this is sparring them back in, right? Like, that sounds like a really fun meat grinder.
You
Now,
got some
will that
thorn whip.
literally ever happen?
Oh yeah.
No, that literally will never happen.
Mm.
Not a single time in human history will you have a coordinated group that has that many push abilities. Are you kidding me?
Oh, all right. All of that. All
Yeah.
right. No, I thought you meant just some of it
If
or any of
one
it.
person has it, I will be actually surprised. Like, that is a high bar. I could see that happening, but I wouldn't expect it. if more than one person has it, now we're just in the realm of fantasy. Like, that's just ones of parties that exist. And there's just not a real chance that 4, 5, 6 members of a party are all coming together to make that come to fruition. On top of that, needing like the setup to be, all right, I ready for myself or whatever, they get to the other side, and the monster's gonna be in exactly the right spot so we can exactly knock them back into the setup blade barrier line that we've created. Like, that is
That doesn't
so
sound
many
as
things have to go
far-fetched as
right.
you're saying. I mean, like all you have to do is you're the cleric. You're getting your 6th level spells. You say, all right, guys, I'm taking blade barrier, and just one time, I want this to happen. So whatever you got to do, prepare this spell here. Like, all right, we're gonna set this up, even if it's just for some loser goblin.
That dies in the first instance of the
Yeah,
damage
all right.
drop.
Bad example.
Some loser giant sack of hit points, like a hill giant or
Yes.
something, right? I
Oh,
I I really think all of this starts to break down the moment you start looking at what monsters can do on their turns. Because like this doesn't do much to impede them of movement. In fact, it does fat nothing to impede them of movement. So like the reality of this often is you're going to get one round where it comes down to use it to the best of its ability. And then post that, the idea that whatever monster is being meat grinded is not going to position in such a way that they can't easily get thrown back into it. That's laughable to me. Like, I just don't see that being a real use case that will ever happen. Now, you don't need more than one round of it if you can get the 18d10 damage in that way. The 18d10 damage is 3 procs. Get them whenever it's they start their turn in it, they enter it for the first time, they have to enter it, which means if you cast it on them, it won't happen. They have to enter it, so you have to like push them into it or something. If you cast this
sure.
on creatures, once again, they're only taking the damage when they start their turn in it. Um, Creature enters the wall's area for the first time on a turn. Yes, I believe that is how that works. Um, so like you do have to work a little harder to get anything to happen out of this at all. And I do think you're not happy if it's just the 60-10 damage. I really think you need at least 2 instances of damage out of this before I'm happy with it. So if you have the party and other players that can guarantee that to occur, or can at least highly make it likely, this is probably a fine spell. I think at 99% of tables, getting more than 1 instance of damage out of this is going to be challenging unless you've got some very stupid zombies that are happy to just run directly at your circle that you've put around the group of a meat grinder, right? If you're fighting against infinite demons that are happy to throw themselves into the giant blade barrier you encircle yourselves with, sure. But I think most encounters, this is going to be like they're going to whale rocks at you until the concentration breaks, and then they're going to come kill your ass, as opposed to ever wanting to move through it themselves.
All right, what about the ring? It can be up to 60 feet in diameter. If you make that smaller, then it really kind of limits a creature's actions once you get them inside it. Because if they don't have a big sack of rocks or something, or some kind of range option, they have to sit there and take the punches or run back through the meat grinder. Or
I would
alternatively,
generally think if you're doing the circle, you would want to keep things out, because if you're using it to keep things in, that's just an inefficient way to do that, right? That's what a hold monster can do. That's what a number of other
I don't want to
effects
hold
that cause.
monster. I want to throw them through the ring of blades and make them choose whether or not they're going to come back out or
And
what.
I want every weekend for it to be Christmas, Bob, but we can't always get what we want, okay? Sometimes we have to live in reality, and reality isn't going to often have people being knocked to the blade barrier be that frequent. And if it does happen, it's like, okay, they went through it, now what, right? Like, you're still on the inside of the blade barrier. Do
No,
you
I'm
just
not. I'm on the outside. I'm throwing them in.
oh, at the end of the day, they can wait it out, right? If the parties are on opposite sides, if you have one group on one side and one group on the other side of the blade barrier, right? Both parties are at parity. They're both firing through 3/4 cover or waiting to use melee actions. That's where both parties are at.
Yeah.
The only way to take advantage of it past that is to force movement. Force
Yes.
movement becomes challenging if you do not have them exactly within 5 feet of the blade barrier, right? So there's gonna be a lot of hiccups with this, even with the ring, especially with the ring. Because again, if you trap somebody in it and you shove them out through it, they'll take 12d10 damage if you're lucky. That's good. You done it. That's worth the cast. Past that, they're not taking any more damage, and I wouldn't expect them to take more damage. I would expect them to wait this out, or again, to harry boulders at you, retreat, whatever else they would want to do.
Yeah. Um, we one thing we didn't mention, and yeah, probably doesn't need a specific mention, but I like this in combination with Giant Barbarian.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
very cute. You can throw people directly into it.
Yes.
Yep. That's one of the better force movement options, right? A lot of those are going to kind of work in tandem with this. You can do things with Polearm Masters too, right? Where like something runs the barrier and they want to keep going, but if they're intimidated the Polearm Master, they can stop them.
Oh
That's
yeah.
really cute if you have Polearm Master Sentinel, right? That's a cute little setup you can do once per round. It's still like that's notable. That's kind of fun. You can probably have some cute setups in that kind of vein where monsters will kill themselves by accident because they won't realize they're gonna be forced to stop. Another cute combo with this is Grasping Vine, spelled as stone, nothing else. But with the Blade Barrier, you can yoink things into it relatively freely. So that's pretty cute. This spell's got a lot of big dreams. If you're a big dreamer or you like big coordinated parties, I think this can be a good time to play with. And I do think the floor isn't the end of the world. I think if you can get 60-10 damage out of it, you're not going to be super happy. But I also don't think it's going to be that unlikely that at least one thing takes 12d10. And in that instance, it's fine. You really do want the third instance of damage because then you're comparing it to things like Disintegrate and stuff where it's a lot more comparable. And then you're a lot happier with the higher damage amounts. But, as is, I would think this is probably like a little 3 out of 5. Its floor is high enough that I'm not upset with it. You could do some neat stuff and protective stuff by like making walls that things don't want to pass through. Sometimes you just want a wall that shreds 3 things. You throw some spells on the other side of it, and if they can't reach you, you kind of have a one-sided fight. This becomes really, really good there, right? If you can barrage some fireballs through this thing and the monsters can't come back, you put them in a corner and you just obliterate them, and that's a fine spot to be too. That'll serve a noble enough purpose. It's still not by any means cracking the game in half, nor something I think a lot of characters can actively make better use of than its floor.
All right. Yeah, that's why I'm not going to give it a 5, but I am going to give it a 4.
Hmm.
I'm the dreamer you spoke of. Yes, this might not ever be as good as I believe it can be, but I'm going to try.
In the White Room scenario, where you have a perfect party of 150 characters, this does the most damage in the game. It's just every single one of those players' turns gets a free 60-10 damage at least. That's pretty good.
This is going to work great with my character that's full of force movement
And
abilities
nothing
and
else.
all crap. Yes.
Yeah.
Everything I've got depends on somebody else using Blade Barrier.
Sure.
All right, good times. All right, that was Blade Barrier. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Tell us your good Blade Barrier stories. Tell us anything we missed and whatever. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.